Welcome to The Explainer. Okay, today we are diving into a scandalous 18th century novel that honestly feels way more like a modern psychological thriller than some dusty old classic.
So, what if love wasn't about connection at all? What if it was just a game of power? Well, that question is right at the dark heart of Choderlos de Laclos' Dangerous Liaisons. It's a story about two master manipulators who treat seduction like a sport, love like a weapon, and yeah, people like pawns.
So, let's meet our main players, shall we? We've got the brilliant and absolutely ruthless Marquise de Merteuil and her ex-lover, the equally notorious Viscount de Valmont. Now, these two aren't just partners in crime, they're rivals. They are constantly trying to one-up each other in this just dangerous dance of intellect and cruelty. Being bored aristocrats in a pretty decadent society with way too much time on their hands and far too few morals, what do? Well, they decide to engage in a cruel wager. And the prize? It's not love or even passion. It's pure vanity and cold, hard revenge. The game kicks off when Merteuil challenges Valmont to seduce the very young Cécile de Volanges before her arranged wedding. And you might ask, why? It's because the guy she's supposed to marry is an old enemy of Merteuil's, and she wants him to marry, well, damaged goods.
And right here, in Merteuil's own words, you see exactly what makes her tick. For her, this isn't just a game. It's a cold, calculated act of vengeance. Revenge is what brings her peace, and corrupting innocence, that's her weapon of choice.
So this whole scheme gets going by targeting specific people. But they're not really opponents, are they? No, they're more like pieces on a chessboard, just waiting to be moved and sacrificed whenever it's convenient.
First up, there's Cécile. She's the perfect pawn. I mean, she's fresh out of a convent, and her total ignorance of how the world actually works makes her an incredibly easy, almost defenseless target for Merteuil's little plot.
But Valmont, who's a total egotist, thinks seducing a naive girl is kind of beneath him. No, he has his eyes on a much bigger challenge, the famously devout and faithful Madame de Tourvel. For him, conquering her virtue would cement his reputation as the greatest seducer in all of Paris. That's the real prize.
So, you see how it's all laid out. Each person has a very specific, strategic role to play in this whole cruel conspiracy. Merteuil is the one pulling the strings, Valmont is her weapon, and Cécile and Tourvel, well, they're just the unlucky souls caught in their web.
Okay, so the game is set. Now Valmont and Merteuil unleash their brilliant, cold-hearted tactics. And what's wild is that the whole novel is told through their letters, which basically act as blueprints for their methods of manipulation. I mean, Valmont's methods are just a masterclass of manipulation. He doesn't just use charm, he builds an entirely fake persona of virtue. He stages this big act of charity for one reason and one reason only, so that word will get back to the devout Tourvel. He's trying to break down her defenses by making her think, oh, maybe he's a good man deep down. Meanwhile, in a pretty chilling letter, Merteuil reveals her own grand strategy. She explains how, to survive as a woman in a world that gave her zero power, she secretly studied society, taught herself to control every facial expression, and mastered the art of deception. She isn't just wicked, she is a self-made monster, forged by the rules of her time. But here's the thing about this story. It's all about the illusion of control. The game takes a turn that nobody saw coming when the one thing they make fun of, real, actual emotion, crashes the party, and the players start to lose their grip. And this is the fatal mistake. Valmont's genuine feelings for Tourvel completely violate the cynical, ironclad rules of their game. This vulnerability doesn't just put his reputation at risk, it sparks this furious jealousy and rage in Merteuil, who absolutely cannot stand to be second to anyone. So, to prove his loyalty to Merteuil and get back in control of the game, Valmont sends Tourvel this devastatingly cruel letter. A letter, by the way, that was actually dictated to him by the vengeful Marquise. It completely shatters Tourvel and kicks off a catastrophic, unstoppable chain of events. Just look at how fast it all falls apart. Their web of secrets was so tight that once Merteuil pulls that first thread, the entire structure just collapses in a matter of days, and it drags every single person down with it. So the game ends. But here's the kicker. There are no winners. The final body count reveals the tragic, horrifying price of all their vanity, their cruelty, and their little sport. You know, the novel's brutal moral is right there in what happens to everyone. Valmont is dead. Tourvel dies from grief.
Cécile's life is totally ruined. And Merteuil, the master strategist, she suffers the most complete downfall of all. She loses her beauty to disease, her reputation to the letters, and her fortune in court. It turns out manipulation consumes everyone involved.
Ultimately, the story is this powerful, timeless warning, right? When you treat human hearts and emotions like they're just things to be played with and broken for fun, that destruction, it will inevitably find its way back to you.
And that leaves us with one final thought. I mean, it's over 200 years later, but the themes of public image, private manipulation, and weaponizing someone's reputation, they feel more relevant than ever. The letters might have turned into DMs and screenshots, but the dangerous games people play, they remain terrifyingly familiar.